Okay, so are you ready for this? Today we're diving into the Manson family murders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think everyone, probably knows the name Charles Manson, but like, how much do we really know? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, have you ever thought that maybe there's more to the story than just like those headlines, those big shocking headlines we all remember?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so to like really untack all of this, we're using Tom O'Neill's book Chaos. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, I
And
have.
also like some online reviews about the book that
Okay,
we found.
cool.
Yeah. So,
It's gonna be interesting.
yeah, it really is. I think so. Um,
This case is one of those that just like, I don't know, it just captures people's imaginations.
it really does.
But the thing is, like, O'Neill's research, like, it really throws a wrench into, like, what we all thought we knew, the accepted narrative.
Yeah, that's what I'm really interested in. It's
Yeah.
like our mission today is going to be to kind of uncover this potential cover up and like really analyze whether or not Manson had any connection to like intelligence agencies. Yeah, the CIA, all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So before we like really get into all of that,
Yeah.
I think we should like get on the same page about the basic facts.
Yeah, good idea.
Just so everyone listening is like, okay, we know what we're talking about.
Right.
So it's 1969 in Los Angeles. Like, what even happened?
Okay, so basically, over 2 nights, the Manson family, they committed 7 murders.
The 7 murders.
Yeah, and they were brutal, like incredibly brutal.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about this. It was awful.
Yeah, and like one of the victims was Sharon Tate.
Oh, yeah, the actress.
Right, Sharon Tate. And she was like 8 months pregnant at the time.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It was a lot, like these crimes, they totally shocked the nation.
I can imagine.
And for a lot of people, it really felt like this was it, like the end of the 60s.
Yeah, the end of like that, like the peace and love and all that.
The idealism, like it was over.
Yeah, it was a really dark turn for sure.
It was.
So then you have Vincent Bugliosi, right? He was the prosecutor in the case.
Yeah.
And he wrote that book, Helter Skelter.
Right, the famous one.
The famous one, exactly.
Yeah.
And like in that book, he lays out like his theory of the motive behind the murders.
Yeah, so his theory was that Manson, he wanted to like start a race war.
A race war.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Bugliosi, he argued that Manson was like fixated on racial tensions,
Okay.
and he really believed that this like apocalyptic race war was coming,
Oh, wow.
like it was going to happen. And he thought that these murders, that they would be like the spark.
Like to ignite the whole thing.
Yeah, to ignite the whole thing. And then, he thought that he and his followers, that they would like emerge as the leaders afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty out there.
It is?
But that was his theory.
That's the story that like everyone just like accepted, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like the main narrative.
And then Tom O'Neill comes along like decades later
Right.
to write like an article for the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
Did he think he was going to find anything new? Like, did he go into it thinking he was going to uncover all this crazy stuff?
No, not at all.
Really?
No, he thought he was just gonna like rehash the familiar story,
Okay.
just like retell what everyone already knew. But then
He finds stuff.
he starts finding all this evidence, and it's pointing to something completely different, like
Different how?
a cover-up.
A cover-up.
Yeah, we're talking about police negligence,
Okay.
potentially even misconduct from within, like the legal system itself.
Wow.
He even found like hints that intelligence agency, like maybe they had Manson under surveillance.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So he's finding these like inconsistencies and all this stuff.
Right.
And then he goes to interview Bugliosi, who like at first was totally happy to be a source.
Right, like happy to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
So that interview, it became a turning point.
Okay.
It started out like friendly, just a conversation,
Yeah.
but it got like hostile.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. O'Neill found Bugliosi to be super evasive and defensive, almost like he was hiding something.
Hiding something, huh?
Yeah, it was weird.
So that's where O'Neill's suspicions like really took root, right?
Yeah, I think so.
This wasn't just some like open and shut case that everyone thought it was.
Right.
Like, he had to dig deeper.
Exactly.
And like that led him to some like pretty big questions, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Questions like, who are Manson's real connections in Hollywood?
Yeah.
And why were they so quick to like distance themselves from him?
Like he wanted nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it. And then there's the question of how Manson, like this ex-con who was illiterate,
Right.
how did he manage to transform this group of like peaceful hippies.
Like literally peaceful hippies.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Into like a group capable of such brutality.
It's hard to imagine. It is.
So then O'Neill's digging took him from these like Hollywood figures to like the world of spies.
Yeah, like intelligence agencies, all that.
All that, yeah. You mentioned like potential surveillance earlier.
Right.
Was there anything more concrete like that pointed to a connection with, say, the CIA?
So one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that O'Neill uncovered,
Yeah.
it involved this health clinic
Okay.
in San Francisco.
Okay.
That Manson and his followers, like, they frequented this clinic.
They went there a lot.
Yeah, pretty regularly, it seems.
Okay.
And get this, that clinic, it was receiving funding from what's known as a CIA front organization.
Hold on. A CIA front organization? What is that? Like, can you explain that?
Yeah, so basically it's an organization that, like, it seems independent on the surface,
Okay.
but really it's funded and controlled by the CIA.
They're like secretly running it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
They use these fronts to carry out, like, covert operations.
Wow.
And it gives them, like, plausible deniability, you know? Like, oh, it wasn't us. It was this other organization.
Exactly.
So we've got Manson hanging out at this clinic funded by the CIA.
Right.
That's, like, already suspicious.
It is.
But there's more, right?
Oh, yeah. There's more. So O'Neill found that one of the doctors associated with the clinic,
Okay.
this doctor was a leading expert on brainwashing
What?
and thought control.
No way.
Yeah.
Like, for real.
For real. And not only that,
There's more.
but this doctor was also on the CIA payroll,
Wow.
studying the potential of LSD for, mind control.
This is totally reminding me of MKUltra.
Right.
Okay, can you explain what that was for, like, anyone listening who might not know?
Yeah. So MKUltra was this, like, top secret CIA program.
Okay.
And it ran for decades, like from the 50s into the 70s.
Okay. Fun time.
Yeah. And the goal was to investigate, like, mind control and chemical interrogation.
Oh, wow.
They experimented with LSD, hypnosis, all sorts of techniques. And a lot of times they were doing this on, like, unsuspecting subjects.
What?
Yeah.
That's messed up.
It was. It was all about, like, trying to influence behavior, manipulate people,
To control their minds.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so we've got Manson,
Yeah.
this clinic with CIA ties.
Yep.
And a doctor who's an expert in brainwashing and worked for the CIA.
That's a lot.
It all sounds very, like, MKUltra-ish,
It does.
Is there anything, like, concrete, like anything that actually links Manson and his followers to that program, like, specifically?
So O'Neill, he stopped short of definitively saying that Manson was, like, a subject of MKUltra,
Okay.
but he does present some pretty compelling, like, circumstantial evidence.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The clinic's connection to the CIA, the doctor's research, the fact that Manson was there, it all raises some, like, serious questions.
Yeah, I can see that. So let's, like, entertain that possibility for a second.
Okay.
Why would the CIA be interested in Manson and his followers?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would be the point?
Well, that's where things get, like, even more complicated.
Of course they do.
Some theories suggest that the CIA was interested in using mind control to, like, manipulate social movements.
Really?
Yeah. And maybe even, like, instigate chaos and unrest.
Wow.
Others believe they were just trying to develop techniques for interrogation
Okay.
and, like, extracting information from people.
Like getting people to talk.
Exactly.
This is all feeling very, like, Cold War spy thriller.
I don't know, right.
And, like, terrifying if it's true.
Yeah, definitely.
But O'Neill wasn't just, like, relying on these connections.
No, he did his research.
Like, how much evidence did he actually find?
Okay, so he spent 2 decades.
2 decades.
Yeah, 2 decades researching for this book.
Wow, that's commitment.
It is. He conducted hundreds of interviews, dug through police records, and he even got his hands on, like, previously unseen documents.
What? Like, from where?
From the LAPD, the FBI, and yes, the CIA.
No way.
Yeah.
So this wasn't just, like, speculation.
No.
Like, he had a lot of material to back up his claims.
He did. He really did.
Wow, 20 years of research. That's incredible.
It is.
And what was the response to the book? Like, did other people find his theory credible?
It definitely, like, made some waves.
Okay.
Even Stephen Kay, who was a Los Angeles deputy district attorney,
Right.
he said that the evidence presented in Chaos, like, it could be strong enough to actually overturn the Manson murder verdicts.
That's huge.
It is. So it wasn't just some fringe theory that people were dismissing.
Right. What about people who like actually read the book, what were they saying?
So the online reviews that we have,
Yeah.
they show that like readers were really impressed with O'Neill's research and
Yeah.
his commitment to like presenting the evidence. A lot of them agreed that like while the basic facts of the murders themselves
Yeah.
might line up with what Bugliosi laid out in Helter Skelter,
Okay.
the backstory is like way more complex and disturbing
Yeah.
than anyone initially thought.
So we've got a potential cover-up, like shadowy figures, and maybe even a connection to Encultra.
Yeah.
This is a lot. Like, where do we even go from here?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. We need to examine like the specific evidence that O'Neill presents,
Yeah.
the potential motives behind the cover-up,
Right.
and like really explore this chilling possibility that the Manson family, they might have been more than just a group of like misguided hippies.
This is way more than just like a true crime story.
It is.
It's like we're talking about like questioning what we thought we knew about one of the most like defining moments of the 20th century, right?
Absolutely.
Are we confronting the possibility that like powerful institutions
Yeah.
may have been involved in something truly dark?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay, so
And it's a story that continues in part 2 of our deep dive.
okay, so make sure you keep back for part 2.
We'll uncover even more.
We will, yeah. We've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to this.
I know, I can't wait.
It's going to be wild.
It is. See you in part 2.
See you then. So, welcome back to our deep dive into the Manson family murders.
Yeah, I feel like we left off talking about this whole potential CIA connection.
Right.
And honestly, it just sounds like something straight out of a spy movie, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It really is. So can we like go back to that for a second?
Sure.
Like what exactly did O'Neill find that led him down that path?
Well, as we discussed, like one of the most significant pieces of evidence is the link between Manson and that health clinic in San Francisco.
Okay.
Remember that?
Yeah.
The clinic was funded by a CIA front organization.
Right.
And that doctor who was associated with it, you know, the one who specialized in brainwashing and all that,
Right.
he was on the CIA payroll.
I remember you mentioned that he was studying the effects of LSD.
Yeah.
Given what we know about him culture, like how does that tie into this?
Well, LSD was a key part of those experiments. Yeah, it was one of the main substances they used in their research, along with hypnosis and other techniques,
Wow.
all in an attempt to, like, control and manipulate people's minds.
So it's like, it's important to remember that MKUltra, this was a top secret program.
Right.
The CIA was operating in the shadows.
Yeah.
Like they were experimenting on people,
Mm-hmm.
often without their knowledge or consent.
It's pretty messed up.
It really is. It's a chilling thought.
It is.
So if we're like considering that Manson might have been like connected to MKUltra,
Yeah.
what would be the point of like covering that up?
Right.
Wouldn't it be easier for the CIA to just like let the case play out as it did,
I see what you're saying.
you know, with Manson taking the fall?
That's a good question. I mean, think about it. If the public found out about MKUltra,
Yeah.
that the CIA was involved in these, like, unethical experiments,
Right.
it would have been a huge scandal.
Yeah, for sure.
It could have, like, jeopardized their entire operation,
Yeah.
eroded public trust in the intelligence community.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, they had, like, a very strong incentive to keep their involvement a secret.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about the other things that O'Neill found?
Right.
Like the evidence of police negligence, the potential misconduct from like within the legal system.
Yeah.
Did he find anything concrete that tied those issues to a cover-up?
Well, he uncovered several instances where the police, you know, they seemingly mishandled evidence,
Right.
failed to follow up on important leads, or just, like, ignored information
Really?
that could have pointed to, like, a wider network of involvement.
So it's like they were deliberately trying to keep the focus on Manson and his followers
Yeah, it seems that way. Like, they were the scapegoats.
as like the sole perpetrators.
Right.
Wow. So are we talking about the possibility of like higher ups,
Possibly.
like maybe even people within the federal government,
Could be.
putting pressure on local law enforcement to like bury anything that could have exposed a more like complex truth?
Yeah, it's a possibility that O'Neill definitely doesn't shy away from in his book. Remember, this was during the Cold War,
Right.
like a time of heightened paranoia and a lot of secrecy within the government. Like, the idea that they might have intervened to protect their own interests, It's not that far-fetched.
Especially when you consider, like, how much media attention the Manson murders were getting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They became, like, this symbol of the dark side of the counterculture movement.
Right.
If the authorities could, like, maintain a simple narrative,
Right.
Manson as, like, the crazed cult leader,
Yeah.
it would, like, prevent the public from asking too many questions.
Exactly. They could control the narrative.
Yeah.
Keep the public focused on Manson as, like, the embodiment of evil,
Right.
rather than letting them consider the possibility of, a larger conspiracy.
Okay, so how does Hollywood tie into all of this?
Right.
You mentioned before that Manson had connections to people in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, so Manson was, like, desperate for fame. He wanted to be a star, a musician, and he managed to use his, like, charisma and whatever charm he had
Okay.
to work his way into certain circles within Hollywood.
Right.
He even had, like, recording sessions
Get out.
with a well-known record producer at the time.
No way.
Someone with connections to, like, some major musical acts.
Wow.
There are even rumors that, like, some of Manson's music was incorporated into, like, popular songs.
Wait, are you saying that, like, people in the music industry
Yeah,
knew about Manson's, like, more sinister side,
it's possible.
but still worked with him?
It's hard to say for sure, but, you got to remember the context of the time.
Okay.
This was the late 60s.
Right.
The counterculture movement was in full swing.
Yeah.
And the lines between, like, the underground and the mainstream were becoming, like, increasingly blurred.
Okay.
Some people were drawn to Manson's, charisma, his music, his message, however warped it might have been.
I guess so.
Others might have seen him as, like, a novelty act,
Okay.
a way to, like, tap into that counterculture energy and make some money.
Yeah, I can see that. It still seems risky, though, to, like, associate with someone like Manson.
Right.
Knowing his history and his, like, increasingly erratic behavior.
Yeah, for sure.
Did any of these, like, connections end up playing a role in the murders?
Well, that's the big question,
Yeah.
and one that O'Neill spends a good portion of his book exploring.
Okay.
He suggests that certain people in Manson's Hollywood circle,
Yeah.
they may have known about his plans for the murders,
Oh, wow.
or might have even helped to cover up his crimes afterwards.
Hold on. Are we talking about, like, actual accomplices?
It's not clear.
Like, people who actively helped Manson carry out these, like, horrific acts?
O'Neill doesn't go that far,
Okay.
but he presents evidence that some of Manson's associates,
Yeah.
they had motives for wanting the murders to happen.
Like what?
Maybe they saw it as a way to, like, gain notoriety,
Okay.
eliminate rivals,
Right.
or maybe they were just trying to protect themselves, fearing that Manson might expose their own, like, secrets or indiscretions.
Okay. This is where things start to feel like a real-life conspiracy thriller.
I know, right?
Like, shadowy figures in Hollywood,
Mm.
pulling strings, manipulating events,
Yeah.
all to protect their own interests.
It's crazy.
It's like what you're describing is a world where secrets are currency
Yeah.
and reputations are everything.
That's exactly what Hollywood was.
And, like, arguably still is.
Probably.
It's not hard to imagine people in that world going to, like, extreme lengths
Yeah.
to protect their own careers, their image, their power.
Absolutely.
So are we saying that they might have used Manson as a pawn
Possible.
in some kind of, like, twisted game?
Yeah.
Or were they, like, unwillingly caught in this web of lies and deceit, forced to, like, cover up their association with him to avoid scandal?
Those are the two main possibilities that O'Neill explores.
And we may never know for sure,
Probably not.
like, what their motives were.
No.
But the evidence that he presents suggests that their roles in this story go way beyond, like, simply being acquaintances of Manson.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's also murky and unsettling.
It is.
O'Neill's book really paints a disturbing picture of Hollywood
It does.
and the lengths people might go to in order to, like, preserve their power and their image.
It's pretty dark.
It is. And, like, what makes it even more disturbing
Yeah.
is the idea that these individuals might have been complicit in,
Right.
or at the very least, like, turned a blind eye to
Yeah.
some truly horrific acts.
It's heavy stuff.
It is. This whole deep dive has been, like, a wild ride.
It has.
We've gone from a seeming, like, straightforward case
Right.
to a potential, like, web of conspiracy, government cover-ups,
Yeah.
and maybe even mind control experiments.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And throughout it all, like this chilling presence of Hollywood lurking in the background, adding another layer of intrigue.
Absolutely.
And unsettling possibilities.
For sure.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
What's the like final takeaway from all of this?
Well, that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've examined the evidence, considered the potential for a cover-up,
Yeah.
delved into Manson's Hollywood connections.
Right.
Now it's time to, like, bring it all together and see what conclusions, if any, we can draw from all of this.
All right. So welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the Manson family murders.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It really has. Like from that kind of like accepted narrative to a potential CIA connection, Hollywood cover-ups, and the dark side of the 60s counterculture movement.
It's a lot.
It is. So now it's like time to see if we can like actually make sense of it all.
Yeah, try to put the pieces together.
Okay, so where do we even begin? We've got like all these threads, culture, Hollywood, a potential cover-up. How do they all like connect?
Well, maybe the best place to start is with motive. Like, if there was a cover-up, as O'Neill suggests, what was being covered up and why?
Right, like we've talked about the CIA's potential involvement.
Yeah.
But like, wouldn't acknowledging any connection to the Manson family be like disastrous for them?
Oh, absolutely.
So why cover it up? Like, why not just let the murders be attributed to Manson alone?
Well, the answer might lie in the nature of culture itself.
Okay.
Remember, this was a top secret program involving illegal and unethical experimentation on human subjects.
Like, exposing that would have been a PR nightmare for the CIA.
Oh, totally. It could have led to, like, legal repercussions, congressional investigations, the whole 9 yards.
So they had, like, a really strong incentive to keep their involvement, if any, a secret.
For sure.
But what about those other inconsistencies, like the police negligence, the mishandled evidence?
Right.
How does that fit into all this?
Well, if we consider the idea of a cover-up orchestrated at, like, a higher level, maybe even within the federal government, then it's not a stretch to imagine pressure being put on local law enforcement.
To, like, downplay or ignore evidence.
Exactly. Evidence that might lead back to the CIA or other government agencies.
So the LAPD might have been deliberately, like, steering the investigation away from anything that could expose a larger conspiracy.
It's possible.
Wow. So it's like they were creating this neat and tidy narrative that the public could like easily digest.
Yeah, just focus on Manson and his followers as the scapegoats. Prevent any deeper, more uncomfortable truths from coming to light.
Okay, so the potential cover-up, like, it makes sense if we assume the CIA was involved somehow. But like, where does Hollywood fit into all of this? We've talked about Manson's connections to the entertainment industry. But was it more than just, like, a desire for fame?
Well, that's the question that O'Neill really grapples with in his book. He digs deep into Manson's relationship with various figures in Hollywood. Including that record producer we talked about earlier.
Right.
And what he suggests is that these connections, they might have gone much deeper than anyone initially realized.
Deeper in what sense? Like, are we talking financial support? Or like something more sinister?
O'Neill presents evidence that some of Manson's Hollywood associates might have had knowledge of his plans for the murders.
Oh, wow.
They might have even, like, encouraged him.
Really?
Seeing the chaos and violence as a way to further their own agendas or even eliminate rivals.
That is, that's a disturbing thought.
It is.
But it would explain why some of these individuals went to such great lengths to, like, distance themselves from Manson after the murders?
Oh, absolutely.
They're trying to protect their own reputations, their careers. Even if it meant covering up their involvement in something truly horrific.
Yeah, remember, Hollywood is a world built on image and perception. A scandal like this, it could destroy careers and reputations overnight.
For sure.
So it's not hard to imagine people making deals, staying silent, even actively participating in a cover-up.
Just to protect themselves.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're dealing with two separate narratives here.
Yeah.
The official story, the one that focused on Manson as the sole mastermind. And then this other, like, darker story that O'Neill uncovered.
The one with the shadowy figures, hidden motives, and a conspiracy that reaches, you know, the highest levels of power.
It's a lot.
It is.
And that's the challenge with a case like this.
Totally.
We may never know the full truth.
Probably not.
But what O'Neill has done is force us to, like, question that narrative we've been told, right?
Yeah.
To acknowledge the possibility that there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
This whole deep dive has been about like digging deeper, challenging assumptions, and confronting uncomfortable truths.
It's been a ride.
It has. We've explored the evidence, considered the various theories, and examined the potential motives behind a possible cover-up.
We've done a lot.
We have. But ultimately, it's up to you to decide what you believe.
Exactly. We've provided the information, the context, the different perspectives.
Yeah.
Now it's your turn to weigh the evidence, consider the possibilities, and draw your own conclusions.
We hope this deep dive has been insightful.
Yeah.
Not a little unsettling.
A little bit, yeah.
The Manson family murders remain one of the most perplexing and disturbing chapters in American history.
For sure.
And as we've learned, sometimes the most unsettling truth is that there might not be a single truth at all.
That's the nature of conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
They challenge us to question everything.
To like dig deeper.
Yeah, and never take anything at face value.
And while we may never have all the answers, like the pursuit of those answers can lead us to a greater understanding of ourselves, our history, and the world we live in.
It's a journey.
It is. That's it for our deep dive into the Manson family murders.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We encourage you to read Chaos for yourself.
Yeah, check it out.
And explore the evidence that O'Neill presents.
There's a lot there.
Keep asking questions. Keep searching for the truth.
Right.
And never stop exploring the hidden corners of history.
That's what it's all about.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.